don't know if are you guys seeing anything right now?
Yeah, we're up.
I see a bunch of beautiful faces.
No. Putting my video and it's not popping up. Here. Alrighty, welcome back to the third episode of This Ain't the Show. Thanks for tuning in. And we have quite the panel today. So what we'll do, like we've been doing in the past, is go ahead and get everybody to go ahead and introduce themselves. Once again, this is Tino Savi, the host and the dude who's trying to do himself the best as far as making a living out here. Chief, what you got?
What's up, guys? Hi, I'm Chief, known as also Siaka Massaquoi, actor out here in Los Angeles, California, and yeah, excited to chop it up, see what we can get today.
Cool, Sean.
Okay, my name is Sean Tyler. I'm a law enforcement officer in the state of Texas, former police chief, and a father of law officers.
Ginger.
Did you hear that? Lighting here. What we got next? DJ LOL.
DJ Lowell. I'm a comedy writer, a DJ. I'm out here in Philadelphia. I got a podcast coming out next month called Between Two Perms. So check out for that. And, yeah, just out here.
All right. Marcus Hemingway, living in DC right now, and I'm trying to watch some WWF wrestling at the same time.
Oh, it's Friday night. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. I am Peter. I'm actually remote from my cabin in snowy, cold Montana right now.
Yeah.
But before that, home was Coronado, California, just outside of San Diego, and I am here as the guest expert in special operations, military combatives, and law enforcement defensive tactics.
Holy shit.
And I'm really good at chopping firewood. At least I have been the last couple of days.
That's awesome.
Write the resume. No pressure. No pressure, Sylvia.
There's no pressure. My name is Sylvia. I mean, he said it already. I'm in the outskirts of Philadelphia, and I'm a paralegal for workers' comp. And yeah, this is my first live, so I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm John. I'm a Trinidadian, West Indies by birth. I'm a New Yorker by attitude. I'm an Angelita through no choice of my own. Former special agent with the Deep State Department of Justice out of D.C., running an executive protection firm here in L.A. And Peter, thank you for your service. Thank you, all of you, for your service. But Peter, I need to talk to you offline about Teams 258.
Great.
So we have law enforcement.
That's a real deal when it's just a number.
With
entertainers, we have actors, we have name it. We have quite the panel today, and we also have Halloween as well. So I'm wearing this. I figured it'd be quite spirited. And clearly, none of you guys would take me seriously if this was not Halloween and this is how I was. So with that being said, I want to delve into right away to what has been going on in Philly. Thank you, DJ LOL. I knew I would not be left out. What's been going on? What's that?
He's between two perms.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
You can go
Yeah,
first.
I wanted to jump into what's been going on in Philadelphia. We all know that there has been some rioting up there, and so due to the unfortunate individual who brought a knife to a gunfight. Now, there's some of that go along with it. I talked to Marcus about this. He told me that it probably wouldn't be a good idea to play the Facts of Life theme song, and I took you up on that. But because of what's going on there, I do give the you guys heard about how they've been running over cops and whatnot.
Mhm.
I want to go ahead and show that up real quick, so we're all on the same page. Where are we at? Here we go. Is this it here? Yep. Yeah. This is what I want to bring up real quick and start from here.
Oh, he hit a cop. Oh my God, he hit a cop. He hit a cop. Oh, I'm out.
That's hard for me to watch. So I can't speak for the rest of the panel, but I can tell you it's very difficult for me to see that.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard for and what here's the craziest part about it is what led to this. It was the worst thing you can do to go ahead and put yourself in a bad situation, and then now we're going to go ahead and ride over that. People will have their own opinions, but for that, I'm going to give that the James Evan Award this week.
Zavi, if I can remark about that, just based on some things that are developing here in Los Angeles, the West Coast shithole, stephole sister of New York, where I'm from, which is the original East Coast shithole. So we know that Antifa and Black Lives Matter have ready response teams dispatched throughout the nation. They're literally in every major urban city, and there's people don't understand the disconnect between the individual authentic use of force incident and the ready response team deployment within an hour. And so what really pisses me off is when I see a journalist, whether it be Fox, and I'm getting to hate Fox as much as I hate CNN and MSNBC.
I hear you.
I hate to see people who've never been through an academy, who have no training in use of force, rendering opinions regarding how an officer should engage in the deadly use of force. And they think, unrealistically that, well, why did you have to fire this many rounds? They don't know that the number of rounds that you utilize has no bearing on the threat incident itself. You use enough to minimize the threat, quite honestly. And so they make a big thing about 3 shots versus 5 shots, never having been in that situation. And the media, including those who are well-intentioned, even on Fox, they are a big part of the problem because they're not really explaining to people that use of force, this is not necessarily the deployment of the continuum of force, but the need to address the immediate threat. I know that Chief Tyler can speak to that as well. So with the ready deployment of these fast teams from Antifa and Black Lives Matter, the fact remains is that the public is going to be drawn to that candidate who speaks most vociferously against it, which is why I think in the urban cities across America, President Trump has gained a huge following amongst people who don't even necessarily like him, but what they do enjoy, what they do like, is knowing that their friends and family are safe. And I get asked all the time because I'm a West Indian, I'm not exactly white. They see me wearing my Blue Shield mask sometimes when I do wear it, although I'm an anti-masker, so to speak, and they ask me, well, don't Black Lives Matter? And my answer is very candid. That depends. Okay. The Black Lives Matter to me, that depends. So if it's the life of a child, an innocent bystander, a grandmother murdered at the hands of black drug dealers or gangsters, those lives matter. If it's the life of a black racist like an Oprah or a John Legend or whatever the case may be, I'm not so much concerned with them, quite honestly.
I hear you. Hey, so real quick, I know because we're all going to start jumping in here. what you said about the media, yeah, I think we all agree on they play a big part of this. And Marcus shared something with Marcus has his own show as well, and he had a story from West Side Chicago that it didn't even make the news. Marcus, you want to share about that?
Yeah, it was two young ladies, aka Oompa Loompas. They held down a security guard. One of the sisters held the security guard down, and the other sister stabbed him 27 times.
Yes.
So I think that it's so hypocritical to the black community sometimes. When you see a situation like that where a knife was used, but if that security guard was an armed security guard, he saw the knife coming and he shot the young girl before she had a chance to stab him, we'll be in the same situation as well as in Philadelphia, as Chicago.
Yep.
And I think nobody's looking at that. It's like, this is the end result if you did not shoot somebody with a knife. When I went to Flexi and I did my training at Federal Law Enforcement Academy as well, we was taught the continuum of force. We was taught, when to pull your weapon, when and how to de-escalate a situation. When you see that video, those officers, they was actually retreating backwards until they had no other option. So nobody's looking at that. Nobody's really dissecting the video and saying these officers did everything they could do to minimize the damage to them and anybody else. So when you lunge at me with a knife, I'm be honest with you, I'm gonna have to put some bullets down range. I'm just gonna be honest.
Now, DJ LOL, I know you definitely go a little bit more to the left. What's your take on this, man?
First of all, it's Lowell, but I want to say this. You showed the videos of people running over cops, right?
Yeah.
And how many videos have you seen of unarmed black people getting slaughtered? I can say, since I live in Philadelphia, rioting is terrible, as now the CVS is closed and grandma can't get her medication. Yeah. People who do that are idiots. Resisting cops is bad.
Okay.
110%. Have we seen videos of people a lot less tan lunging knives at a cop and they get to go home or they get to go to jail alive? So I just asked, how did the guy get to be so lucky? And one thing I want to say, back in the day, people used to think I look like John Legend, so hopefully I don't go out because this guy doesn't like John Legend. I don't want to get shot.
I mean, hey man, you went from looking like Tupac to John Legend to.
Hey man,
I don't know how you do it. You do it though.
You got to keep reinventing yourself.
Yeah. If you ain't growing, you're dying, right?
Hey, seriously, he's like Tupac when Tupac was alive, and all of a sudden he just we're like, I thought you were. Then now he's Van Jones and he's John Legend. And
I want to say one other thing too. My aunt is a police sergeant, and I understand and I respect law enforcement to the utmost power. I never have troubles with cops because I treat them as human beings and I treat them with respect. But I just think now that you want to talk about the biggest contributor to the civil rights movement is Steve Jobs, because everyone has a phone now and they can see what's going on.
I like that. So, DJ, let me add to what you were sharing. So here in LA, I've been blessed with my executive protection firm to, be contracted on behalf of a number of high profile, high net worth, high threat people. And the great irony is that on they're speaking from both sides of their mouth, so to speak, because on the left side, they're speaking or calling for the confiscation of personal weapons because they don't support the Second Amendment, yet they're paying me money to provide armed security for them. So it's the inherent hypocrisy that really causes me to lose respect for them. And people will come out and ask me, during interviews, they'll say, listen, you got to know, we side this way politically. And I'll tell them, well, listen, you side that way politically. I'm a staunch conservative. You are hiring me to protect you and your family. If that's an issue in terms of how I vote personally, then, let's shake hands. And it's been a good 5-10 minutes. I'm still going to charge them a consulting fee for wasting my time. But the fact remains that I learned that when you're studying who you are, regardless of the client's political affiliation, you're going to prevail. And that's the problem with federal law enforcement right now. Just had a talk with one of the top attorneys in Vegas yesterday, what the pandemic, and Chief, no disrespect to you, because I know you're hard and the rest of you in law enforcement as well. Right now, what the pandemic has demonstrated and the riots have proven is that for the most part, law enforcement is useless. You're not going to be able to make a call to 911 and get a response.
Quick, we're going to get more into the reform in a little bit. I want to cover what's going on right now in Philly. Chief, I know you were going to go, and I want to get Sylvia in here because Sylvia is actually on the ground. She's seen it firsthand. So go ahead, Chief.
You know I'm in Philly too.
Yeah, I'm actually
Right.
outside of Philly. I'm not that far, but I just wanted to like piggyback on DJ's when he said the comment about why is it that more so Caucasian incidents that happen with the cops is not displayed on the media as much as, you know, a black person. And I think that in a sense, and I say this all the time to people, that the media capitalizes off of our trauma more so than any other race at hand. I tell people all the time
Yep.
that, you know, it's crazy that you don't understand how common it is for a white person to get killed by the police, you know, but they don't display it and they don't broadcast it because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit Black Lives Matter's narrative as well. So when you think about it, it's all a game. It's all a game. It's all about money. It's all about capitalizing on what will sell the most. What will people look into the most? And as unfortunate as Black people in our trauma and we're emotional. And I say that all the time, we're emotional, so we act off emotion. So when we see incidents that occur, we go out, get angry, get upset, we're not rational. And I say this, when you're emotional, your IQ level goes down. So you're not thinking. You're not
That's
thinking.
facts. Facts.
So that's why you have all this looting that's going on, and then Antifa, which I tell people all the time, if you see them, beat them up. But I don't want
Hey, no, everybody, we all feel guilt, fall victim to it if we're not careful. I'll be the first one to admit it. Hang on, I want to get Chief in real quick. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, yeah, no, I was, you know, coming down to what DJ said. Of course, what John pointed out as well. It's like looking at it from the standpoint where it is a messaging. You know, it is a messaging thing. That's exactly what they want to do. They want to message chaos. They want to, and they've been doing it for a long time with a lot of you know, us Black men, and you know, not having fathers around. That responsibility wasn't really for us. To the point where in these schools right now, they've taken away discipline. No one gets in trouble anymore, and those kids with no direction are not going out in the street. And there's a different like objective from the person with a badge than the lie that these young Black kids are being told and running around like crazy people. So it's like I think it's a mixture of both. It's one side being told a lie that they are somehow beholden to the world treating them a certain way based on a history that is, you know, convoluted at best. And then going against the side that goes, look, you got to follow these rules. Now, when you have your DAs letting people back out, what is that telling the populace? These rules don't really matter. This law and order that established the civilization throughout the history of the world, all of a sudden doesn't matter in this case. It doesn't matter here. So, you know, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, like what I said earlier, it's like the people who always hurt from this are the poor, to poor, brown, and Black. It's not going to be the person in Beverly Hills. It's not going to be the person in Bel Air. You know, the person who's hiring John because they have the money, but they're the ones voting to defund the police.
Yeah,
They're right there.
Do this.
That's the irony of it.
Yeah, it's the same people that get set up, and there's a reason why Black on Black crime isn't talked about. It can't be talked about because that's the real issue in the Black community. It's not white cops killing people. The real issue is we kill ourselves like it's a shoot 'em up
like
game.
it's a sport. Like we're animals.
And it's I mean, some of the stuff I'm hearing from some old gangsters from LA talking about what they see in Chicago. Yeah. Child support murder. Child support murder set up through a welfare system that sits there and then we'll pay a mom not to have the guy around, but then we'll put the weight of that money on the back of the guy, and if he doesn't pay it, he can go to jail.
Yeah, Chief. Let me add to what you're saying.
Life at the youngest right now hate each other for being together for a financial gain.
Yeah.
So until we remove that shit,
and so that's actually where we're moving to right now as far as the discussion in terms of what does reform look like. We keep talking about police reform. Okay, can you really have police reform without community reform?
Nope.
And so, Sean, I know we've been talking about this for a while. And so I wanted to bring you and Sean and ask you two things. One, when you're in the field, what's the toughest thing for you to do? And two, what is your idea as far as reform from a 30,000-foot view on both sides?
You know, somebody just made a statement a second ago. They hit the nail on the head. Was game. When the bureaucracy of the criminal justice system, urban police officers, is very difficult to see as a federal law enforcement, special agent, military, so forth, other members on it. The urban police officer.
Turn your volume down a little bit.
Is it his or whose is it? Because I'm having a hard time hearing it.
I think it could be his.
Okay, so turn his volume down. Okay.
You guys hear me better now?
It's less.
It's less.
I've not mastered this. There you go. I sound better now?
A lot better.
Okay. And what I was saying earlier, somebody hit the head on talking about the DA. And I think for the urban local law enforcement officers, the bureaucracy of the system is what's frustrating. Because when you respond to a call, you've got a victim, and the victim expects the police to do their job. And you take a guy to jail, and the guy's out 24 hours, or your DA saying you're not going to prosecute. It starts to look like at a certain point you're ineffective. The community's not taking your word anymore. And that's something that the federal special agent don't go through. The law enforcement officer and the military don't go through. On the federal level, the system is far different. It's less congested. It's and you've got to. I'm not saying it's instant or it's perfect, but the Philadelphia police officer, the Chicago police officer, my hat's off to that guy, because he's going to work, and if he takes old Joe to jail for stabbing somebody, it's a possibility he's out tomorrow. And Miss Kennedy's looking at you and she's saying, "Wow, I can't depend on you, no matter how good you paint the picture." That's a major problem in law enforcement. And
I mean, and then like just what Marcus was sharing, you had the security guard who got stabbed 27 times. And so if he would have shot, then would he have been, marketed as the villain? You know what I'm saying? It's like there's
no.
I personally would not
black or white
at this point.
No, it depends on his skin color.
Yeah, but the security guard was black, the one that said shit.
Well, one thing
I want to interject for just a second. It's refreshing to be on a panel with people of color and hearing what you have to say, because the narrative right now from the liberal, especially the liberal media, is just the opposite.
Yep.
But because I work with law enforcement and military, where color isn't really a factor among the teams. What matters is the guy next to you, keeping him alive, and vice versa. And when I get to speak with people that I work with, they don't look at white guys or black guys or Hispanic guys. It's a matter of good guys versus bad guys. And to listen to all of you talk, it's refreshing. It's nice to hear this from you, because the media doesn't portray that from you. The media wants everyone to believe that all blacks feel persecuted by law enforcement, that all blacks what's going on in Philadelphia is right, because God forbid one of those police officers would have been stabbed a dozen times. He had no right to shoot an armed attacker, even though the police officer had a gun and the attacker had a knife. But listening to all of you and watching you nod your heads, I just have to say kudos to all of you for really seeing what's going on and not buying into the false narrative that the media is trying to sell to the rest of us.
Well, Peter, just so you know, I actually identify as an Asian woman, so I'm not part of this. No, seriously, hey, I have here's a question as far as reform goes. Do we teach our kids, do we give this to our friends and family in regards to it's okay to resist arrest, it's okay to do a thing if you're emotional, regardless of if you have whatever type of mental issue going on. Like as a police officer, I can't see that because that's what it all comes down to. How are we teaching? How are we talking to our family members? Because this is happening way too much. There's something in the ether to where it's not knowing what your responsibilities are as a citizen, as opposed to, well, if you don't know that, you can be easily led to think that all cops are bad cops, and this is bad thinking. And I was just talking to one of my buddies in Baltimore today, who's actually white, and he cracks up about this because this dude did not have you would call white privilege at all. He lived on the grid, and he got to talk too as far as how to interact with police officers. And I've talked to my dad yesterday, and he's telling me that his dad, my grandpa, very stoic type of dude who came from sharecropping family, just made it very clear the way they thought back then. And this is what my dad told me. My grandpa said, the government doesn't owe you anything. The state doesn't owe you anything. Nobody owes you anything. It's up to you to go out there and get it. And that was during the Jim Crow days. And so it's just like, it's a different way of thinking that I don't think has so much to do with ethnicity as opposed to just thinking. And so my idea as far as reform that I think could help, what if they made it part of the educational academia to where kids were able to take police courses, go through active simulation as far as what's required to go ahead and do, pull someone over, this, that, and the other. I personally think that'd be a big deal. And then obviously just kind of knowing what to do if you are taken advantage of by a bad cop. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I want to jump on that because I started my career as an investigator, then became a teacher, then went back to law enforcement. So years ago in graduate school, and all the graduate schools on the East Coast, from New York to Boston to whatever, all the Ivy League schools, they're all based on the teachings of John Dewey. Now, John Dewey, at the time that I was in graduate school 30 years ago, I didn't recognize that he was a hardcore communist. And now I realize, many years later as an educator, because I still consider myself an educator, that the school system, the public school system, is designed not to emancipate anyone, but in fact to indoctrinate them. So I was shocked 30 years ago at the degree to which the teaching staff and the curriculum reflected a sense of victimization and everything they were teaching the kids. So when I was dealing with 12th graders who were formerly 5th graders who were illiterate, and now they're 12th grade, and they are graduating because New York City Board of Education needs that grant money, they're prepared for nothing other than going into a life of criminality. And working with private sector schools here in LA, I've had a chance to take a peek at their curriculum. They are currently working with the curriculum founded by and supported by both Black Lives Matter and the Southern Poverty Law Association. So basically, kindergartners are being instructed in the fact that they are to be highly sexualized, which is why we now have transgender reading to kinders, and they're learning early on that they are victims. And so I've always felt that the Department of Justice should be looking at these various teachers unions around the nation, because the teachers unions are responsible for indoctrinating these kids. Did you know that the vast majority of Antifa arrested on the West Coast are actually teachers? Yeah. Quite honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And the relationship between Black Lives Matter and Antifa is the brains and Black Lives Matter is the muscle, and the muscle is unaware of the fact that they're being manipulated. In terms of parents talking, having that talk with their kids, I'm always getting into trouble with Black clients because I am always dismayed when they have that talk with their kids. And that talk is what we've all heard, that being Black, being stopped while driving Black, and that disturbs me, because why are you planting a seed of fear in your child? Have the real talk. Don't look at color. Say, listen, if you get pulled over, present your license, cooperate. Exactly. Okay, if there's an issue, you're not going to win. You're not going to prevail in the moment. Take the summons, and you'll prevail at court later.
Why I referenced my buddy earlier, who's from Baltimore, who's white. He's white, and his parents had the talk with him, but his talk was obviously not about him being white. It was about, hey, dude, if and when you get pulled over, here's what you do. And that, going back to how to reform, it's got to start with the family first, and then you can kind of spur out into the education as far as academia. But yeah, I mean, family is a form of education. What am I talking about? Sean, did you want to add something in there? I saw you kind of.
No, I mean, he was taking the words out of my mouth. I mean, I was thinking just what he was saying. And if more people knew the history and the connection between Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and then the public educational system failure. And all this started maybe about 35, 40 years ago. And we're seeing it bubble over now today, but the erosion of law enforcement in the community, the fact that we're dealing with so many issues in urban metroplexes, because we've had urban sprawl, we've had a lot of the foundation that keeps communities vital and strong dissipate. We've got a lack of Black participation, us as minorities participating in law enforcement. So that's another problem. And there's so much in a big pot, and now we don't like what we're eating, but it's taken 35, 40 years for it to get this way, and it's awful.
I got to say this because, being a PO for 11 years, I had the opportunity, the privilege to go in people's homes and work with families who came out of prison. And the mindset of some of these families are remarkable. And what I mean by that, it's always a victim mentality, especially when I worked in LA, Nickerson Garden and Watts and Compton, and going to them households in the DC, Southeast DC. And it's the same across the board. They have no trust or no understanding about the criminal justice system, understand how fair administration of justice is actually put out. And one thing I tell offenders is that, look, if you do something wrong, I'm not going to put more on you that you don't deserve. I'm not going to ask for a lengthy sentence, but I'm asking for a fair sentence to teach you a lesson. Also let you know that the criminal justice does work and it is fair. It's not here to be punitive, but it's also here to be restorative in the nature that you have faith in the system. And that's what we're not teaching. Because when I was in school, we had the officer-friendly program. We had the DARE program. We had cops in there who would talk to us about the fair administration of justice. Don't get me wrong. Right. I always tell my kids, if you do something wrong, you're going to get punished. But it's going to be fair and equitable across the board.
Yeah. Marcus, let me ask you a question real quick. Sorry.
Hang on. We got to keep the book on. Hang on. So as far as I wanted to go ahead and piggyback off of that as far as paying the price. All right. And so what just came out this week? What came out with Mr. Hunter Biden? So you have a guy who just got busted in messing with some little 10-year-old girls, and I mean this is October surprise. Giuliani had this, and man, did he let it go. And so now the only rebuttal is it's the Russians did it. Okay, blah blah blah. The Russians did it. That is extremely awkward. That you have the son of the guy who's running to be president. He may have known about this. And we also have proof that he's been getting 10% from China. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's more awkward. Like, to me, that's awkward. Or this clip that I saw this past week. You tell me which one's more awkward, that or this?
You did an interview in which you said, it's not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist. It's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah, remember that? Yeah. And I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good.
You don't think it's bad?
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They don't want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
What would...
Man, it's tough when James Bond says that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I grew up on James Bond, and that's hard. James Bond tells you it's okay.
Oh man!
Wow.
Those moments like that, like what's the point of that? Like that to me is just an exacerbation of where we are now. Like you got a guy, Sean Connery. They're sitting in a different time. and he comes from a different time. He's not living in the 2000s and growing up in that where it's just a different rule. So a lot of that, and like when they go back and find Kevin Hart's tweets and all these people, what they said back then, it's a different time. So all this stuff is just used to find a reason to be upset. And that's to me, even going back to the whole, like the messaging to the, black kid, it's all about, they're all trying to tell you, hey, look, this is why you're mad. Don't see this blue skies, see why you're mad.
It's called,
whether
can I say something?
Yeah.
Funny. Anytime I get into an argument with someone, they always bring back things that happened in the past when they weren't even thought about. And they're like, well, look what happened to us in 18 something. I'm like, well, what about now?
Yeah.
You can't harbor on things.
Thank you. And that's okay. So that was my point in bringing that up, because somebody sent that to me and it was kind of funny. I'm like, it's kind of awkward. And we were talking about the whole Biden thing. I'm like, why don't we talk about the thing that's going on right now? Why is no one talking about that? And it's weird. Like it's like we're in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
How in God's name does all this happen and we're not even like it's got blacked out?
Yeah.
Well, Zavi, everything in life comes down to context. In that particular context, Sean Connery was discussing his personal moral choice in terms of how he would engage a woman. That's vastly different than the culture of cancel that we have now, where people are drawing from numerous examples out of context with which to.
No, I got that, John. But hang on. What I'm trying to get at is Biden. We're still not even talking about it. We're still not even talking about Hunter Biden. How the dude got busted with pedophilia. How are we not talking about that?
Because
but we spend God knows how long talking about Trump grabbing you know what.
Yeah,
and they're groupies.
He's shielded by the media, and he's being shielded.
That just blows my mind. Like it upsets me because I'm like, dude, you're busted, and it's just like no one's going to talk about it. Oh, okay, I guess it didn't happen.
Hunter Biden is not on the ballot. Hunter Biden is not on the ballot.
Oh man!
So the guy who was
I won't vote
so
for
the so the guy who was embezzling money out of China and the Ukraine and Russia using his family members to do it is up for president of the United States, and that's not important for us to know.
Good for you, Chief. Good for you for saying that.
That's the fact.
I stand by it. Yeah. Hunter Biden's not on the ballot.
No, I'm asking, but it's a whole different question. So he's not on the ballot. The guy who's on the ballot
but you know what?
uses family to embezzle money from Russia, China, and the Ukraine, and at the same time knowing that they were supplying his son with endless crack and the little girls. He knew that. His name's on the emails. That's
what DJ's saying is the truth. Hunter's not on the ballot, but his dad is. His dad is on the ballot, and there is a causal relationship between Hunter Biden's ability to acquire those ill-gotten gains and his direct relationship with the vice president of the United States. So that's really the issue here. It's a causal relationship that has to be examined, and the media is not willing to even raise a question about it.
So the media is not going to touch it. I'll let you guys know. The FBI has had Hunter Biden's laptop for some time. It did show up yesterday when Bob Walensky brought this to the front.
Right.
I work with federal law enforcement, and I hope my Fed friends are watching this, because even my friends in the FBI tell me that when it comes to Joe Biden, FBI stands for Find Biden Innocent. So that gives you an idea of what the liberal narrative really is. DJ Lowell's right. Hunter Biden's not running for president. I'm not voting for Hunter Biden. But inversely, Hunter Biden is the son of the man that could potentially run the most powerful nation in the world. And there is evidence now, real evidence, potentially linking the future president of the United States to a moral compass that does not port north, to collusion with foreign governments. So,
embezzlement. Literally embezzlement. That's what that is.
What I look at, what really troubles me about this more than anything else, and I think a liberal or a conservative could at least be honest enough to say this: if the shoe were on the other foot and this were Donald Trump Jr., we would hear so much of it that we wouldn't be able to hear anything else. So I think what troubles America is there is a double standard here.
This was Donald Trump's son or better yet, someone that works with him or associate with him in some
Sure.
shape or form or matter, they would have blew it up.
Yeah.
So that's why I
That's
understand
right.
that, you know, Hunter Biden is not on the ballot, but at the same time, we have to kind of accept this the same way if it was the other way around. So I agree with that. I agree it should be blown up because it's not even just the fact of him being Biden's son, but this is serious. This is pedophilia we're dealing with. You know, we're not dealing with just, this is not no joke. This is something serious where children are involved. So that's why it should
So here's the question for everybody. Here's the question for everybody.
My granddaughter says she took baths with him when she was little kids and showers and shit that made her
Yeah.
uncomfortable. He's on a ballot.
And I was going to get to that. I was going to get to that.
So I know that
When
for
it comes
sure. That
out
was
to
in
where,
her diary. So what do
Right.
we like? So it's like, but
That's-
the whole thing comes down to where is the message? If the message is only like a white cop kills a black person, that's systemic racism. But this guy over
Right.
here has been embezzling money, basically tearing down American like infrastructure for his last 50 years, and there's no questions, nothing brought up.
nothing.
Some
Yeah.
guy saying, he goes, man, these clout chasers, these jersey chasers, these groupies that we all know will let you do
Right.
a lot of things because you're famous. That's what he was talking about. Becomes
Yeah.
he's a sexual harassment. But all of a sudden we forget that there are groupies. We forget that there are roadies. We forget there are jersey chasers. It's like this pick and choosing of what we want to be upset about is the problem. We have to choose. If we're gonna fix shit, let's fix it. Not pick to go.
Well,
I'm not
I
going
mean,
to go over here because it
fair
doesn't
is
feel
being
like
uncomfortable. Right.
It's like
exactly.
never move
Be-
anywhere. It's
fair
the same
is
argument
being
over and over.
uncomfortable because you have to apply it in areas that are going to be a little bit more familiar. And hey, I get that, and it's what we need to do to really have a chance at solving anything. In regards to kind of moving things right along with what will happen if 45 gets back elected or Biden. Someone tell me, what does that look like? Actually, you know what, DJ, what does it look like if Biden gets in as opposed to Trump? What policy driven, policy wise?
So for me, since it was Bush, it was Clinton, Bush,
Yeah.
Obama, Trump. My life has really never changed much. I mean, my taxes were a little bit less when Bush was in office because we went down a little bit. I like that a little bit, but for the most part, I don't see much change. And I see that, you know, that probably the healthcare situation will change if it's Biden versus if it's Trump. I think Obamacare will probably get repealed if it's Trump again. But I like to come back on your podcast after President Biden's first 100 days, and we'll talk about it.
Zavi, can I add to that?
Hey, I mean, these days anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
Zavi,
Kanye
New York and all these blue territories, they're talking about the cheating. So the days of us saying it can never happen as we have a face mask on, those days are gone.
Yeah.
Zavi, if I may, let me add to that. So I can tell you, I was blessed to be a part of the executive protection team for President Obama in 2010 when he came to Los Angeles, and that was a fulfilling experience. I regret that I didn't get my photo with him. The chief of staff had promised me that, but a low-level assistant neglected to call me in for my photo, so that's a regret. Having said that, I can tell you that from a law enforcement and private sector perspective, the Obama administration pretty much gutted law enforcement, and it really decimated private sector security. Those in the military can speak to that as well. The other thing I want to discuss is the fact that on one hand, whenever liberals are speaking, like on the news or in general, your friends or family, you've got to challenge everything they say because they tend to conflate fiction with reality, and they speak from emotion and not fact. But on the other hand, they are always truthful when they warn you of consequences born of your decision to oppose them. So when they tell you they're going to burn shit down, when they tell you they're going to defund, when they tell you they're coming after your guns, when they tell you they're going to riot, you have to believe them.
Yeah.
They've never lied about that.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at as far as with the policies that Sleepy Joe's talking about from fracking to wearing masks and all this good stuff that is a concern to a lot of us. What does that look like if he wins? I mean, some might say that have a military background that we possibly could be entering into a hot zone or a civil war. Is that possible? What does it look like if this rolls out?
He said he likes
I can speak to one thing. Currently right now, I'm an immigration officer. What I do the citizenship test, I do the green card interviews, I do the asylum cases, I do the refugee, I do all that stuff. All right. And when I talk to my coworkers and I talk to other people in the community, especially black people, they always complain about illegal immigration. And it's always been a big hot topic issue. And one thing I always tell a lot of people, we used to have black communities. They don't call them black communities no more. They call them minority communities.
Yep.
So, and the reason why I bring it up because he's talking about tearing down the wall, opening up the borders, and flooding communities with more illegals. And I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong. That's not my decision. I'm just looking at the impact on certain communities of color. Let's be honest. Black Americans always get the shit end of the stick when it comes to certain resources. And the biggest thing right now, at least in DC, is affordable housing. If you live in a major metropolitan area right now, you cannot find major affordable housing. And if you have a flood of illegals coming to, and like I said, they don't go to Beverly Hills, they don't go to Georgetown, they come straight to the hood. And you've been saving up all your pennies to get a house, and now it's gone. That doesn't piss you off? Also, your schools. When your school is built for 13 or 14 kids in the classroom, and now you have a flood of illegals come in and flood those resources, now the teacher has to teach the 25 to 30 kids, and your kid is being held back because
it's watered down.
Say it again?
The education gets watered down, and we see that happening big time out here in the left coast. Sean, as an officer, how do you see your life changing if 45 stays in office as opposed to if Biden gets in? Does it change at all?
Well, if the relationship with law enforcement in the inner city communities, in the urban areas, I speak of the most, because when you go to your suburban areas, it's a totally different feel. And I hate to say, when I was growing up, I always said it felt like that because it was white people out there.
Yeah.
It's a load of blacks living in suburban America anymore now. And when you go to suburbs, whether it's LA, Chicago, or any of these cities, it's a totally different environment. Law enforcement is relaxed. The policemen look comfortable. I mean, when I was an inner city young cop, I used to say, man, I can't wait till I get older. I'm going to be a suburb cop because they ride with one guy in the car. We stuck with riding with two. They get free food at the restaurants and we got to pay. You know, kids walk up and they wave at you, and when we walk up, kids don't.
That's interesting.
So if the relationship degrades any worse in the relationship that the Democrats have with law enforcement, I mean, if we eliminate that relationship and it goes worse, we're not going to get blacks even applying at all. Now we got blacks applying, but they don't stay on the job that long. So what happens when we don't have no participation of minorities even applying? And then we have all white policemen working in communities, and oh God, it's a horror story in the making, because when those 2-3 white officers got that guy pulled over, the media, they frame it in a way to sell newspaper. I feel bad that the black community can't get profits from the media on the newspapers and the programs that they got, because they're using us as minorities as props to sell and sensationalize what they're doing. Yeah. You know, when it's a very complex situation, but the media, I've heard everyone tonight on this podcast make a statement about the media. The media is the foundation of a lot of the problems that we have on what society thinks about law enforcement.
Yeah. So is that a part of the reform that we need to do? Is that a part? Because I got my own ideas. If I was King James Bobby, what I would do, and I mean, I maybe the media is a big part of that, because you can get your whole reputation, ruined within 10 seconds. You spend 25 years to build it up, and so how many wars have been started unnecessarily by Mr. Media?
I don't think the media can.
Probably most of them.
I don't think the media can be stopped. I watched the FBI. I never thought the FBI would be a victim to the media. And I watched them since Trump's been in office. They drugged the FBI through the mud. I mean, I see poor FBI agents.
You know what? That might be the most profound statement right there.
Well, you know, Chief, I can add to that.
Seriously,
Chief Tyler, as a former 1811 special agent, I am actually, I am not a fan of the FBI, at least not executive management, not the senior executives who are at the GS 15, 14 level, because they are politicians.
Yeah.
Once you get beyond that of group supervisor, and now you're an assistant special agent in charge or a special agent in charge, you're no longer a cop, you're a politician. And what happened in the Obama administration is that those positions were highly politicized. So I can tell you years ago, trying to make some dope cases, and the assistant U.S. attorney here in Los Angeles wouldn't take it. Why? Because if we had a 90% chance of indictment, that wasn't good enough, because they're thinking about running for Congress 10 years down the line, and they want to be able to tout that they have a 100% conviction rate. So the system is really kind of jacked. What I dislike about the Bureau right now is that, and this is the question raised in my mind, I know how they tend to misuse 18 U.S.C. 1001, which basically the way they entrapped General Flynn. And what that basically means in layman's term is that you can be held accountable for someone else's lie inadvertently.
Right.
And part of the plea process under 18 U.S.C. 1001 is that you are compelled to plead guilty when in fact you did nothing wrong. There's that number, and Congress has been trying to change that for 25 years, but it's not going anywhere. But the thing that I'm thinking about is that if they've been conducting this long-term investigation of Biden since 2019, that means that they had possession of his laptop earlier this year when President Trump was being impeached. Now, why didn't they provide any exculpatory information that would have actually quashed that, that impeachment? You know what I mean? And they had no Brady obligation, so to speak, in terms of providing information, because they weren't investigating the president, but they could have played a far more prominent role in the interest of justice.
So, the whole long and the short, as far as the most violent game in the world is not football, as much as I like to take pride and credit in that. It's definitely politics. It's definitely the most violent, and it operates on being blackmailed, and being bribed. And so you have an individual who you can't pay, and you didn't have enough to make him look bad, he's the dude with the bat. And that's a tough thing to take, because you can't control him. So with that being said, is that something that I know I keep on going back to the same thing. I know we're talking about, corruption, this or that. What I'm trying to get at is, how is it going to look? How is it going to look if Biden wins as opposed to Trump, or Trump as opposed, because these are some big time things that we're expecting. I've talked to a couple people today, this past week, who are in law, and also with a military background, in terms of, hey man, they're prepping for big things to pop off. So Peter, Chief and I, we meet up. We live pretty close to each other, and shit's going down. We don't know what to do. What's the first thing that we should do if it does go hot?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult question to ask, especially in a forum like this. I would tell you that there's something that all of us need to be aware of, and especially the public. And this is very unique in the sense that police officers, whether it's municipal, local, state, and federal, all belong to some sort of a union in some sense or another. John knows this, Sean knows this. Right. This is the first time, this is very significant. This is the first time in history that all law enforcement personnel is endorsing a candidate. They typically don't get involved in politics.
I agree.
Typically liberal,
right.
Votes union votes liberal, I should say. Yeah. So, and this came up in one of the debates with President Trump and Vice President Biden. When President Trump asked Biden, can you name one law enforcement agency that is supporting you? And of course, Vice President Biden, as he's been very good at doing, he dodged the question by not answering it. So one of the concerns for me, and my primary role is very simple, is to train military and law enforcement to do one thing only, to excel at their job and come home alive. That's my focus in every program I teach. But when you're talking to a group, whether it's state police, local police, or federal police, and they're all telling you, we support President Trump because President Trump believes in supporting us and he believes in law and order. So that's scary because now you're looking at a potential candidate, Vice President Biden, who may one day be the president of this country, who does not have the support, the loyalty, or even the belief of our law enforcement agencies. And if you talk to most people, taking COVID out of the picture, and you ask most people, what do you really want besides being able to make a living, pay your mortgage, and feed your family? They'll all tell you, I want law and order, and I want to feel safe where I go. And the people that are responsible for that safety right now basically are at odds with one of the candidates. That in of itself is a very scary premise.
And so, Sylvia, as a female, what makes the most sense to you as far as who you'd want to lead based on their policies, as opposed to not?
To be honest, of course, I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm more so concerned about my child. I'm concerned about her education. I'm concerned about her safety. I'm concerned about her socializing with her peers. That is my issue because I'm a woman. I'm not going to go out and fight anything. So I'm not, even if a war happens, I will not take part of it. You know, I will be in the house like I've been for the past couple days. So I'm not really focused on that. I'm focused on the youth. I'm focused on these children that are growing up in this unfortunate year that's just been chaotic. And I'm concerned about her going back to school. You know, I don't want her to have an academic delay because of the fact that she's at home and she's not able to, you know, interact with her friends and her teachers. So I want things to go back to normal. I don't want it to be where we're in the house. These kids are not proactive because they shut down all types of sports. So my issue is the obesity level. I think that we're going to have to seriously play catch up. Even if Donald Trump is reelected, I still feel like we have to play catch up. But if Biden's elected and he's the new president, I just think it's just going to set us back. So I'm not really focused on myself. I'm focused on my child. I'm focused on the children. And even when it comes down to the youth with the police officers, and I say to my daughter and to anybody, it doesn't matter what race you are, we have to teach our children to obey authority. Because I think that lacks now, especially in the inner city communities, when they interact with these cops, they don't obey the cops because they feel like that their pride is more important. Or when they listen to these rap songs and the rap songs, police, these are pigs. And then when they interact with the cops, that's what they think of. Oh, at the police.
I agree.
It's worse now.
I mean, it's the same thing with if you're raised on gangster rap being your father, then you're gonna think all bitches is hoes and tricks. I mean, that's what you are is what you eat. So it's just anybody can fall, victim to it. Fortunately, we're all old enough to where we were still watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, and we knew that wasn't reality. And the culture was different. Things go back to normal. A lot of people, I mean, they keep on saying a new normal, which is a major oxymoron. I don't even really understand that statement, but it's just where we go now. I guess we'll find out. But I guess trying to shift a little bit out of this.
Yep.
He just shifted himself out of it.
All right. Well, he said it and he did it. He said it and he did it. No one can say he's not a man of his word, right?
You need to take this over, right? So, here's something I would say, and because there's law enforcement on the panel, and because I think all of you have enough understanding of this, I think this is something that warrants saying that everyone should understand. Being a police officer is not an easy job, and people think, oh, it's a great job. I get to eat donuts and sit in my cop car all day and harass black people. but you know that's not really how it works. And what I tell people all the time is this. On the side of a police car, it says to protect and serve. And the overwhelming majority of law enforcement, and I'll venture to say all the law enforcement on this panel, you didn't go into law enforcement because you thought you were going to become a billionaire. You went in because you felt a need to protect and serve, and you wanted to make a difference in your community. And what I tell people is think about this. When you wake up in the morning and you go to work, and before you go to work, you put on a Kevlar vest, you check your weapon to make sure it's functional, and you kiss your wife and your children goodbye, or your husband and your children goodbye, you understand in the back of your mind there's a chance if things go wrong, I'm never going to see my family again. So it takes a very special human being to do that. And I think where we're missing the point today is we have forgotten that I grew up in a time, and I think all of you did too, we were taught to respect law, we respect firemen and ambulance drivers and law enforcement because they were not portrayed as the bad guys or the enemy. They were portrayed as the good guys. And I think what we need to do, and what I'd love to see either president do, is for all of us to begin portraying them as the good guys and recognizing that their job at best is difficult and at work is almost impossible. Yeah. And if we can understand what they have to go through, it might be easier, Sylvia, and for people to understand when you respond to a call, you have a knife-wielding attacker who is disobeying every command you give him, and literally your life or his life is hanging on the line.
Nobody who wants to live is not going to shoot. Nobody, I don't care, cop, Superman, nobody who wants to live is actually going to shoot. And so that's just one of those I've heard people say, well, they can shoot them in the leg, they can tase. Man, I know people who got tased 3 times and are still rapping backwards. I hear that type of answer, and I feel like the dude from the Billy Madison movie, The Orator guy, who gave the answer after he said the stupid thing,
is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
That was the best part of this podcast.
That was the best part, yeah. Well,
what bothers me is because my job.
I want to go ahead and give everybody an opportunity. Because I want to close with laughs. I want to close with a little bit more of an easy feeling. DJ, did you want to share your poem that you were going to share last week?
No, I don't know if we would have enough time for that. Maybe another time.
Okay, no problem. With that being said, I got a hypothetical question for everybody.
Wait, I would like to say this though, because I guess I'm a moderate, but I lean left, so I guess I'm the only leaning left person on this panel. So I just feel compelled because I know, Gene, your subscribers, your viewers are going to go up. So people are going to get good content here. I want to say one thing.
It's because you got the glasses, that's why.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. So we talked about endorsements. Law enforcement is the only one that endorsed Trump, but I can counterbalance that. There are newspapers that have never endorsed candidates before that have endorsed Biden. I think it was the New York Times. And Biden did not subscribe to defund the police. He actually is going to spend more money. He's going to increase spending on law enforcement. I'm just throwing it out there, giving both sides of the story. So I'm doing.
Come on, man.
And you're right. And actually, you're very right. You're accurate in that saying. You're very accurate in that saying, DJ.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
If he can remember it.
He
Are you guys agreeing with me?
Strangely enough, even though you're probably a little bit more liberal and I'm clearly conservative, I want to go on record as saying this. If it hits the fan, I will give my life for you as I would for any American.
Mm-hmm. Hey, that means John Legend, if you're watching, he would give his life for you too.
Mess around.
I don't know how you look like Hey, I know I said this already. This guy has looked like 3 major celebrities in 2 decades, from Tupac to John Legend to Van Jones. It's amazing. I'm like, it's check it out. We're kind of going back. So we go to the club back in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just the ones who look like you. And so,
Van Jones thing is new. This Van Jones
Yeah.
is new.
Hey man, hey, look, hey, we would go. Listen to this. Hey,
Omar
check this
S. I
out,
got
check this
all
out.
that stuff for years.
So, and Chief, you got the whole Kim thing going on. So we would go to the club, and like 2 of the guys, 3 of us, and DJ was our point, because girls would flock to him, and we were like, yeah, we're with Tupac cousin dude. It was the craziest. And he had the bandana and all that.
Use the
And I'm
skills
like,
guy gave you. You know what I mean?
looks like somebody. Like, hey, but look, I want to go ahead and ask you guys a hypothetical question to close things out. What would you do, starting with Chief, if you had 1 week of 3 special powers,
Okay.
but you had to use it for, I guess, your political party? What would you do?
Oh God.
Wait.
What would it be?
Gene,
What would it be?
Gene, why don't you give an example first, Gene? Why don't you set the stage with that?
Yeah. You can start off. So,
Yeah.
you're gonna wait till the end so everyone gives good answers or shitty answers and then pick the best one. Thank you, DJ. Thank you. I see what you're doing.
I mean, I can go first, but then mine would be so good. You'd be like, I'm not even gonna go to try. That was just too good.
I'm like, yeah, what he said. Oh, boy. Okay, so I'll give you this one. I would have.
You know what? I would only need one. I'd only need one.
Mm.
And it's not that super, but I think it'd be. You want me to share?
Better
I'll
internet
tell you.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks for asking, Chief. I would want to have the power to be able to pass gas loudly whenever I wanted. And the reason I would do that is because I would give these I would give debates and whatnot, and go ahead and prove my point. And after I prove every point, I would just go ahead and let one go, and then just go ahead and set the. I make my point, because there's nothing to say after that. If I can say after someone says that, I'd be the Michael Jordan of debating, because like, dude just did that. It's nasty. I like how he did that. He's got style. DJ, what would you do?
No, hold on.
Character, a whole new superhero. Fart man.
If I recall, you've had that power for years, so I don't know what you're saying.
Now with that control, man. I wasn't Kobe with it. I was like Gary Payton. I can steal here and there. Come on, you know that. Who else? Somebody.
I would say I would go.
What would you use that for 1 week? You get 1 week.
For 1 week, I would use. I would have the power to give information so that everyone, and I know this for a fact, from family members to friends I grew up with back home in Chicago, they don't even come close to reading other stuff. And so they believe everything they said. Like, it's that fear of like, it's like, no, read it all, man, and then delineate the information. Now, if I could do that for 1 week, is like, give them everything that drops, let them get it all just as much as they only feed on one side or the other. So then I think it actually brings us more to the middle than I think most people are anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Very cool. Very cool. DJ or anybody.
If I had a power and I could pick it, I would eliminate racism, end world hunger, and peace all over the world. I would try to give that energy so the world can just be a better place. How about that?
That's like a Miss America interview.
He is a liberal. You're right. No. What about those pies in the sky, motherfucker? No.
The man put me on the spot. I didn't come up with a question.
John.
Two things. First of all, it's gonna be tough to top those answers. On a personal note, it seems like during the past 10 years or so, at least here in LA, every white liberal Jewish woman thinks I am Johnny Mathis, and I'm unable to move away from that for whatever reason. Ma'am, I'm not Johnny Mathis. I'm not his grandson. You know what? I
Start
wish
saying
that,
serious brother. Go ahead, go with it.
I wish that for a week or so I could have a big enough impact on the school system. First of all the schools should open, and I wish that I could teach high school kids about breath work, box breathing, deep breath work, because that would really take their personal study life to a whole new level. And I think it would help to alleviate a lot of the aggression in school, because when kids are acting out, it's because they're acting out of not knowing what type of decision to make. You know what I mean? And so I know that seems kind of pie in the sky, but I would wish that upon the kids, just to be able to manage who they are and their inner turmoil better.
But you only get 1 week, so remember that, guys. 1 week to go ahead and make a big
Got to hit the LA
impression.
Unified
Sylvia.
then. I got to spend all my time with LA Unified. So
Yeah, shit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sylvia.
Oh, it's me. Oh, I thought it goes. Okay. I would say if I had, you said 3, because I know that everybody was saying one thing. Is it 3?
I said 3.
Yeah, we'll just go with one.
Okay.
We'll just go with one.
Okay, the first one would be everybody sit up here and protest against these masks and go out and say we are not wearing masks. We refuse.
Yeah.
If I had the power to say, you know what, you guys, take these masks off. We're going to fight for our constitutional right. And then, I think that would be a better place. We fight more for what we, for our freedom, because we're living in America. So
Sylvia, you are a woman after my own heart. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm kind of tempted to ask you to marry me after saying that. Is that
I was going to ask her that too.
Off air.
all right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter. You're the guest. Go ahead. You guys first.
All right. So 3 things. I would echo some of the things that have already been said, and Chief said it very well. For a moment, remove yourself from left or right, and just look at the facts.
Yeah.
And like Sylvia said earlier,
Yep.
when I vote, I don't vote for me. I vote for my son, for his future. And I would tell everybody,
Okay.
look at the facts. Don't choose the candidate that social media wants you to choose or that your neighbor wants you to
Right.
choose. Choose the candidate
Sure.
who represents the things that you feel are the most important for the future of your child. I would do that in the first week. The second thing I would do is exactly what we've done here tonight. I would stop pointing fingers and ask people, put the hate aside and remember that we're America. We are Americans. We're a great melting pot of black and white and yellow and brown. And at the end of the day, one flag flies over all of us. And if we could just do what we did, laugh and joke and talk and communicate, imagine how great this nation really could be.
Yeah.
And the third thing I would say is have tolerance. Have tolerance for everyone. Be accountable for yourself, but have tolerance for everybody. When I started this podcast, I didn't know anybody on the podcast. I now know all of you.
There's never been a superhero.
Okay, liberal.
There's never been a superhero with a beard. So you shave your
I
beard,
like him
Peter?
as much as I like Sean. So clearly, I don't dislike him because he's a liberal, even though the media wants me to. It wants me to, DJ, but I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in.
Oh man! You know what 3 strikes right?
I was waiting for
Yeah, get that marketing
I
going.
know you had it. So, you know what? For that,
That's
for
part of
that.
the information on everyone to know.
I was waiting for that, man. Like, it took you so long. Come on, man. You can't have me waiting that long for that.
That was perfect.
Marcus, go ahead, man.
That was perfect.
my only wish is that
You're fired. Fired.
That's pretty good.
I would take AOC and all 3 of them and take them down to the border. Not just take them down to the border. Make them work with Border Patrol for a whole week and put them in the field. Let them get on horseback, on ATVs, and go out there and really secure the border. Let them really feel the heat and the work at the border. That's my wish.
Oh man!
I mean,
I'll pay pay-per-view for $10 to see that shit. Watch that every day of the week.
That's
Oh, you're muted.
So I think, Sean, you got it. You're the grand finale.
Well, first off,
yeah, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry. Last but not least, Mr. Tyler. Marcus
Peter,
was
you
talking about bringing
inspired.
back slavery. I lost myself.
Hey, Peter, you inspired me with yours, man. I mean, I'm ready to go join the military. I mean,
We need a lot of good men and women.
Hey, there you go.
but
So Sylvia's not a fighter.
hey, real quick, I know everybody's seen that they hauled the social media groups up on Capitol Hill or got them to podcast or Zoom the Twitter CEO. Did you guys see the Twitter CEO
Yeah, Jack Dorsey.
testify? He looked really crazy. And it made me think when you asked that question, if I had some special powers, it wouldn't be the Twitter CEOs. I would haul every CEO of every media organization on Capitol Hill. And I would do my best to try to legislate media reform, because I believe half of the problem with race relations with law enforcement, black and whites, and whatever other community, I believe the media has a major role to play in it, and the reason why things are so bad. So I would want to reform media, because I think it's impossible to keep those in line.
No, some might say we already have that special power. It's called the RICO Act. So, I mean, I don't know, Trump, if you're seeing this, you might. I mean, he's probably already doing it. But hey, I want to go ahead and close things out. Have a happy rest of the Halloween weekend. Don't be jealous of my solo. And until next week, thanks for coming in. God bless and be cool. Go ahead. The blue one. But thanks again for coming in, guys. I really appreciate it. We will have a great show next week. Be safe. Be safe.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Be safe, Joe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, y'all be safe.